All right, we're back, and I'm not playing any music. What's wrong with me? No, I don't want to play that music. I want to play this music. There we go. See, I had a problem with which music I wanted to play. Anyway, welcome back. Quick correction, the Leon Rideout fetal homicide bill's HB 560. Jane straightened us out while we were on the break. SB 40 is a Senate bill that we got that right. So, but we're going to move on to move back to another subject. The buffer zone bill was passed last year, 25-foot no speech zone around, well, basically no anti-abortion speech anywhere near abortion clinics. In Concord specifically, mostly is what they wanted, but at any health clinic in the state, they said that you couldn't have anybody talking against abortion in this 25-foot space. That's not what they said, but that's what it meant. So it's basically the same as the Massachusetts law that got overturned, and then this year they created a bill to repeal that law so that it would no longer be enforced because there is a lawsuit in process. So, back to you.
Okay. So back to education.
Yes, please.
So I want to say that we've received every email I've received, whether in Facebook or in email, has been in support of what we're doing. You would expect that if people were against it, they would be emailing me, but I haven't heard it. Some people in my town think that public money should be used for public schools only, but they can't really articulate why, because they think it's fair. And I was like, well, what could be less fair than only limiting poor people to go to private schools? Like that, I don't understand this equity issue. Did I make sense?
That was backwards, but we know what you meant.
I said it wrong. Sorry.
It's okay. What would be? I mean, you want everybody, especially the underprivileged, to have the best possible opportunity to obtain an education which would make them privileged and not under.
Exactly.
Exactly. And that's what you saw, what you've seen everywhere. Minorities, by and large, care about their kids' education. There's the ones, the ghetto folks that seem to be just government dependents and don't care. But by and large, you say there's going to be a charter school, and the black moms are lined up around the block to get their kids in.
So
they care, and they should, and we should make it easier, not harder.
Right, and this isn't even a race issue; it's a class issue.
It is the working class or in some cases dependent class that can't afford to get their kids into a good school. The money should follow the child. If you're paying publicly for education, which we deem to be a public good and have done for a century and a half, then damn it, it should be the parents' choice where that money goes, as long as they all get the same amount of money for their child.
Right.
And then if they want to supplement it and go to a better private school, well, then they need to get a better job. But at the very least, they should have a fundamentally decent education at the school of their choice. Right,
and I agree with that. So finally, I mean, if this does get down to brass tacks, it might have to go to court. And we don't know. I mean, we just would like to continue and do what we do. We'd be very happy if Virginia Barry just said, "Oh, oops, I was wrong." Right? That would be wonderful. We don't know.
Good luck with that.
I know. So if it does go to court, it could cost a pretty little penny. We've been quoted the amount of like $30,000, which sounds like a lot of money until you think about it in terms of tuition costs. Mm-hmm. 2 high school students in New Hampshire for 1 year. Right? So it doesn't seem that much when you look at it that way. However, if it does get down to that, we will do some fundraising as individuals, not as a school board, because apparently we can't do that. But as individuals, we will try to raise some money. So if people are willing to support that, I would love to hear from you so that we know what kind of...
Well, it sounds like you made some connections with some national groups that are all about, supporting court cases against states and the federal government. And I think those people would definitely be interested. I know Institute for Justice. I know that... who else am I thinking of? Who else brings a lot of lawsuits for people?
Cato, but not lawsuits.
Right. Judicial Watch.
Talk to them.
There's plenty of people out there who will go, you found school choice within the law. The school board, state school board, doesn't like that you did that, and they're going to try to stop you, and we're going to help you make sure they don't. And then you get the kind of publicity that they don't want you to have. Hopefully it doesn't come to that. I mean, if they back down, which they should, and Chuck Douglas wrote a letter. It's a very simple letter. It says, look, this is what it says.
and to his credit, too, he charged us very little money for doing that. It was like, you're a small town. This is an important issue. How about we do it for this? And it was like, we can do that. No problem.
Yep, and he's the guy.
Institute for Justice is a little afraid of representing a school district because we can change who's on the board. And they've had this happen 3 times, that the board changed over the years, and suddenly they weren't supporting the issue anymore. And that could happen. So that puts them in a funny position. They're willing to support us by talk and research and that kind of thing, but not necessarily go in a cart. Chuck Douglas is
unless you declare martial law in Croydon and suspend elections.
All right. So Institute for Justice is about the individuals. Go ahead.
FIRE, and I can't remember what the acronym is. So I know you
FIRE.
FIRE.
Yeah.
Is another big group. They're more for
colleges and universities, but
they will.
Okay, I will contact these two places. I mean, let's hope it doesn't have to get there, right? But if it does, it would be good to have some.
I know the acronym of which
plans.
you speak. I've got to look it up.
yeah, because it's on the tip of my tongue, and I even know the guy who started it, and I can't remember his name either. But they go after like nutty professors at universities, and the crazy, the Christian group has to accept atheist stuff. And
it's more about free speech.
Right. It's definitely about free speech, and that's
Right.
really what they're thinking. But they're plugged in, and they could certainly point to people if they weren't
Sure.
interested in it. And it is an important issue. I mean, you've got a voucher system built in.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of, if nothing else, if you want people to go out and actually read the law, because there's a lot of fun to be had reading the law here. There are just a few things like, I think it's RSA 198, I'm not sure which, but it actually, unbelievably, the legislature says, we declare that from now on the cost of an opportunity to get an adequate education is around $3,500.
It's actually in the law.
It's in the
RSA.
Just, so you look at those people, it's like, these people, I mean, first of all, who says the cost from now on shall be anything for anything? But just to put that there, and then you ask, well, okay, so $3,500 is for education. Where's the rest going? Daycare? And so there's some, and also the fact that they talk about the opportunity and the RSA that Jody cited about you can contract with another literary institution. So the really hardcore fallback position, and this is why I come here to make her look like the moderate, my fallback position would be, here's the deal. We're going to give you $3,500 and a library card, and you can go over to Newport Library and get an education.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you used to, when you studied to be a lawyer, you would go read the law.
Yes.
That's what you would do.
Yeah.
You would go to the library and read the law, and then you would take the test. And if you needed help, you'd go ask somebody like your buddy who's read the law and say, what do you think? Or you'd go talk to a judge.
Well, you would apprentice, You would go, or it's the same thing to become a doctor.
You wouldn't spend $6,000 million to go to law school and learn how to be a liberal lawyer.
Or even then, to just ask a question. You look at, again, nobody does the math, right? Mm-hmm. And so you look at, say, a kid pays $16,000 to go to school, and say he takes 8 courses, which is probably more than he actually takes, and so that's $2,000 per course. So you got this one kid sitting in, say, an American history course, and he's paying $2,000, and there's 19 other kids.
Well, not he,
paying.
right? But the taxes are paying
right.
for him.
Right.
That's the cost of it, and then there's 19 other kids in there, all paying $2,000. So we're talking about $40,000, right?
For one class.
For one class for 1 year, and it's like
in a
you could go
non-performing
to the
public
teaching company and get a $70 course taught by like the best history teacher in the world, and kids could listen to the lecture several times, and they could share it and use it for several years. And so you're talking about over the course of say 5 years, you're talking about saving the town, $200,000 on that one class. And so at some point, somebody has to ask these questions like, why are we paying $200,000 for what we could get for $70?
What freaks me out is you look at the pie chart for the cost of education, like in Merrimack, our town election is next Tuesday. So they sent out the little chart, and it has the percentages of what everything is spent on and the total budget, and it's like $14,700 per student, K through 12. Total enrollment divided by the budget. And 70% is payroll and benefits.
Yeah.
70%.
Oh, yeah.
70%. The rest of it is other stuff, and somewhere in there they're teaching children how to do things.
Yeah.
That's
right.
They actually gave out that pie chart?
Oh, yeah.
Holy.
Yeah,
They
it is
probably
amazing.
have
And people aren't burning down buildings. There's no marching in the streets.
Right.
Storekeepers aren't going, they took all my stuff. They're not, it's just
People
not happening.
like to ignore what doesn't support their perspective, and so they just simply ignore it.
Anytime that you've been part of the budget process, you automatically understand that the biggest part of any municipal or school budget is the labor, 65 to 70%. So when you said that number, it's like I'm nonplussed.
Well,
It is what it is because it's such an ossified institution, as you were talking about, using other means to do this
layers.
stuff.
It's the administrative layers that
A lot
get
of them,
ridiculous.
You know what you do? I found it, and it worked for me after I asked the question for 2 years in a row, then it started to take effect. What is your ratio of direct to indirect labor?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And they go, it's like, what do you mean by that? Now, I come from a manufacturing background. All managers know what that is off the top of their heads. They don't even have to look it up. It's such a concept in the schools, and you go, what is your cost? And they start talking about head counts. No, what is your cost? No, don't tell me you can't.
Right.
That these are splitting and you can't do it. You're
Right.
fumbling, and call them out on it. And this is how you get
Right.
that down. And our school district has lost
This has
5
potential.
administrators.
This has potential to really change the way we talk about education in New Hampshire. And your example with the online course, I mean, really, people are talking about budgets and money, and where's all this money going? Well, it's all going into schools, right? And there's a ton of money sitting there that could be used for other things, like say roads.
Yeah.
Just as an example, because it's a popular subject.
And
you know?
here's, to take exactly from what you just said, there's an interesting question is, even if you look at the labor costs, and you say, okay, I got a school, it's running, everything's good, I send one more kid. What is the marginal cost of that kid? It's close to nothing, and yet, that's another $15,000 that goes to school. Where's that money go? What's happening to that?
There's a lot of conversations
another
we can
friend
have
of
about
another
that.
union member.
I was just like, really? Because if you're running something for profit, you're like, look, I invested all this stuff, and now each additional kid, I get to keep the money, but that's not what's going on here. Where does that money go?
And that's why labor and pensions should be reformed.
We are Grok Talk. We are done. We will be back next week. And tell me when you're going to take your headset off so I can turn your mic off. Thank you. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming in. We will be back next week with more guests, more news, more politics, and more Grok Talk.
Yeah, baby.
Grok Talk.